This is Vibe Science, a top 100 wellness podcast presented by the Radcast Network, breaking wellness barriers and making health truly personal. Here are your hosts, Ryan Alford and Chris Hansen.
Hello, and welcome to Vibe Science. We're always taking you to your highest vibe as we empower you on your journey for mind, body, energy. And look, today we've recorded a few episodes and it's been all about one of my favorite topics. And that's, hey, who doesn't want to live long? But we don't want to just live long. We want to live long well. That's why we have one of my favorite, I've been looking around at this company's website the last couple of days, and it's starting to ring like bells with me and everything else, and like hitting all the right numbers. We have Dr. Vanessa Pavey from Life Extension. Hey, doctor, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks.
Life Extension. You know, sometimes I work with brands. I own a marketing agency on the side. I've done that most of my life. And sometimes brands make it really hard to understand what they are and what they're about. You might have the best name for describing what you are.
I agree.
Life Extension. There's no confusion.
No, it is our motto. We are all about helping people live their healthiest, longest life.
It is. And it's a wonderful time to be alive. And especially, I think, with the way the supplement and both the health and wellness industry and supplementation, I don't know, the research, the development. I feel like we've had so many products that we're kind of so-so for so long, but I feel like we're getting into this, I don't know, pinnacle time where there's actually a lot of exciting stuff that actually works.
Agreed. Yes. In fact, Life Extension is really on the cutting edge of looking at nutrition and seeing how, really my interest is where kind of the nutrients, how they work in the body, more like the mechanism of action behind it.
Yeah, exactly. And luckily we've got smart doctors like you helping us take us down this road. Dr. Vanessa, tell me a little bit for our audience. Let's set the table a little bit about your background, your passions, and what got you into this industry. Yeah,
well, I've been working at Life Extension for, it's 10 years this last November. So I know the company pretty well, but my educational background is I'm a naturopathic doctor. I did do my doctorate education at Bastyr University in Kenmore, Washington. And I just have such a passion for really nutrition and the nutraceutical industry. So I really enjoy talking about more of like the nutrients that I don't think a lot of people know about. Like, for example, one of my new favorites is Fisetin, which is a flavonoid.
Yes, all the names. I love the names.
Yeah.
Yes, Fisetin. All right. What is Fisetin?
Oh, yeah. So it is a flavonol.
Okay.
And it's primarily, like, dietarily is found in strawberries, which is really the food that has quite a bit of Fisetin. But in reality, when you're looking at the research, most of the research is looking at using anywhere between like 200 to 400 milligrams of Fisetin. And in a cup of strawberries, you're getting around like 2, maybe 3 milligrams of Fisetin. So you have to eat quite a bit of strawberries. But what I mean by strawberries being the highest quantity is if we're eating like an apple, you're getting like 0.5 milligram of Fisetin.
Not enough.
Correct. So this is where supplementation can really help out if we're trying to get those doses that were used in studies to have really some health benefits.
What does Fisetin do for the body and longevity?
Good question. So what really prompted our interest in it is that Fisetin is the most potent senolytic found in nature yet. And so if you want, we could talk a little bit about what exactly is senolytic.
Let's go down. Doctor, we're going down the rabbit hole today. I want to get deep. Yes.
Oh, senolytics is a fascinating topic. And actually, it's one of my favorites is because it's really addressing senescent cells. And my little description on what a senescent cell is, it can get a little bit complex. So this is how I like to pose it. I think a lot of your listeners are probably familiar with telomeres. I'm sure you've probably heard about those. Yeah. The little end caps on our chromosomes. And every time our cell divides, we lose just a little bit of telomere length. So to keep our cells nice and youthful and long-lived, we want to keep our telomeres long. So that's kind of the goal. So I'm sure a lot of your listeners know that you want longer telomeres. Well, here's where senescent cells come into play. So when every time the cell divides, you lose just a little bit of telomere length. But what happens when the telomeres get all the way down to nothing? Well, then the cell can't divide anymore. And so it's really actually reached the end of its lifespan. And then that's actually part of our natural biological clock because our cells are not immortal. They do have an end date. And when the telomeres are gone, that's the end date there. So what the body does is it kind of pushes out those cells that have no more telomere length and, kind of moves them out. And that process is called apoptosis. But some cells evade apoptosis. So now it's reached the end of its lifespan. The cell isn't dividing anymore. It's not really helping your tissues and your organs out anymore. It's just kind of sitting there. So it's not really, considered alive, but it's not really considered dead, kind of moved out. It's a zombie.
Zombies are bad. I've watched enough movies, and my 15-year-old, could be a sleepwalking zombie sometimes. It is not good. Let me tell you, we don't want any zombies. So I'm assuming we don't want these.
Correct. And actually, it's in the literature called zombie cells, these senescent cells, which is why it's one of my favorite topics, because I just think that's a lot of fun.
Do they attack you? Is that the problem?
Good question. A couple zombies here and there are probably not going to interfere too much with your organ function. But when they accumulate, the images, in the movies where it's that big, massive zombies all kind of wandering the streets, that's a little bit on the scary side. And that's kind of the idea of when zombie cells accumulate in our tissues, they can actually interfere with organ function. So this is one of the mechanisms that we're looking at to help with healthy aging is by keeping these zombie cell populations as low as possible. And that's where senolytics come into play. Seno for senescent, lytic for destroyer. So technically a senolytic is a zombie cell destroyer.
Okay. So we're getting rid of bad cells.
Yes, absolutely. So Life Extension's been looking at a couple different molecules as senolytics, and Fisetin in nature is the most powerful one. And what it's doing is it's helping to actually trigger apoptosis by inhibiting specifically biochemically an enzyme called phosphatidyl inositol 3 kinase.
Wow.
And if we inhibit that, it is.
I mean, I don't know about you, Sawyer. I like to inhibit mine. I do not like to let that thing inhibit anything.
Yes, this is definitely one of those proteins. Well, it's often abbreviated PI3K.
Okay,
and this is an enzyme.
I'm an acronym guy. That's much better.
Oh, that's great.
We're inhibiting. Yes.
So if we keep that enzyme nice and slow, that helps to trigger apoptosis. So, and that's what we want. We want to stimulate that apoptosis to remove out those unwanted zombie cells.
I love it. So here's the question I have. This is sort of a blanket question for this supplement as well as, is it ingredient? What do we call this? It's a supplement, but is it a nutraceutical technically? The ingredient? Yeah.
Yeah. I like to call it an ingredient.
Fisetin. Yeah.
Yes.
And so
I call it an ingredient.
Do we feel this when we take it? Like, or is it one of those things that the research is there? Life Science has done it. You've got the backing. You've got, how do we know something like this is working or helping us?
Oh, that's because sometimes it can be a little bit of a gamble. If we're in our younger years, I'm going to say 30 is our younger years. Starting these nutritional kind of ingredients can be really helpful as almost like a gamble to help us age more gracefully. Oh, have you? I wonder if your listeners have heard the term longevity vitamin.
Probably.
Versus a regular. Yeah, because a regular vitamin, if we're deficient in vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin K, vitamin D, vitamin E, we feel the effects almost immediately if we're really truly deficient. But with longevity vitamins that we could consider, like maybe Fisetin, even ergothioneine that we'll talk about has been named a longevity vitamin in the research, that if we're deficient in these, we may not necessarily feel the health impacts immediately, but we tend to age faster. So it can be a gamble. But here's another piece of the puzzle. Fisetin also inhibits inflammation. So it does so on certain cytokines like interleukin-1 beta, interleukin-6, interleukin-8, and tumor necrosis factor alpha, which are really inflammatory cytokines. So if somebody is having inflammatory issues, they might experience less of those types of symptoms with Fisetin. But for those who are maybe not 30, maybe they're in their 60s or 70s, and they're bringing on these nutrients that they haven't brought on in the past, what I would encourage people to do is maybe monitor their health through biomarkers with their doctor, like running even just a simple chemistry panel, looking at like liver function, kidney function. Those might be, or even insulin sensitivity, looking at like hemoglobin A1C and insulin levels. That might be a good way of monitoring to see if the body is, kind of getting a little bit more in balance by cleaning out these unwanted zombie cells.
Yeah, zombie cells out, longevity in. That's what we want. And you're right. I mean, and I think when I talk to people and when I think about it, we're getting to this place, especially with personalized medicine, where the best thing you can do is get the blood work. It's because there's so many of these things that it's not like caffeine or like, certain supplements or ingredients where, I go from this state to that state immediately or within the same day or a week or whatever. But you have to look at your kind of markers to measure, to know kind of where the needle's moving. And so I think if you're going to start taking personalized health, wellness, life extension seriously, it really starts with reading the panel, right? And getting that blood work done.
Absolutely. In fact, it's such an important piece of health that Life Extension offers lab testing. So if your listeners are interested, they can go to lifeextension.com and take a look at the long list of lab tests that Life Extension offers. And we do have a team at Life Extension that's available through a phone call to review your labs if you do have them run. Even if you don't have them run through Life Extension, if you're just kind of curious how your numbers are looking, you could certainly call in and talk with one of our wellness specialists.
I love this. I'm on the site right now. So I'm on my tablet here. So for the audience, and you should be watching this on YouTube anyway. We got a really fast growing YouTube channel. You got to see how wonderful Doctor looks and telling us all these names that we've never heard of, that I'm coming up acronyms. I'm thinking of new acronyms in my mind, so I will remember them, all this knowledge. But here's what I love about what we're doing with the show. We're empowering people because I don't have all the answers. Chris doesn't have all the answers. Like, we're bringing on specialists and doctors like Vanessa to inform and empower. And what I love is like what you're doing. People have to take health and wellness into their own control. And it used to be, okay, I got to go see the doc. And look, you still need a doctor. Everybody needs a primary doctor, like all that. But if you really want to optimize your health, you have to take it into your own control. And companies like Life Extension are empowering you with blood tests, the supplements, the on-call specialist to talk to you. This is what I love about what's happening in the industry and the evolution of it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Life Extension is really a great partner in, like you said, empowering people to take charge of their own health. Another really great resource on the Life Extension website is our health protocols. So at the top of the banner, you'll see Learn. You can click on that and it will take you to quite a few different options. But if you scroll down, there's health protocols. And these are really comprehensive documents that are consistently updated. We have a whole team here at Life Extension who are constantly updating with the current research and what's new in science. And there's a huge list of references with each one. So these are actually ones that you could maybe even print out and take to your doctor and say, hey, here's some interesting information that maybe we should incorporate into our health routine.
Yep. Got to take it in your own control. And look, even the doctors need pushing a little bit, at least suggestions like going, hey, tell me about this. Does this, you're looking at my labs, you're giving me the recommendation, but how does this fit into the picture? And again, I think it's it's funny. I talk about this a lot on the show and I've been guilty of this myself. Our health is the only thing that matters at the end of the day. It's kind of like think about how much you take it for granted, because like when you're sick, the only thing you can do when you're sick is you're in the bed. Like nothing else matters if your health isn't in order. But for some reason, we make it secondary or assume that we'll always be healthy, or we sort of give that empowerment away to just, oh, doc, what do I need to do? How do I handle this, doc? What do I do? No. The information and the resources are now more readily available than ever. And we just have to take control.
Absolutely. And if another really great service that Life Extension provides, not just lab reviewing, but also answering questions about nutrition. Sometimes if you're looking at a particular nutrient online and you have questions about it, Life Extension is available to help you through that health journey and answering questions about certain nutrients. Because sometimes the science gets a little bit cumbersome, like talking about that PI3K. So if you need a little bit of assistance, absolutely, we're available for that.
It's the zombie killer,
yes, exactly.
That's all you got to remember. I asked one of my guests this recently, that's into supplements and different things like that. I'm going to ask you as well, Doc. What stood the test of time? Like, I'm going to ask you, it's a two-part question. We've already talked about one of the newest ones, and maybe we'll talk about one of the other ones we mentioned earlier, because I want to do what's old but still works and is still like awesome. And then so on the other side of the coin, something that you're excited about.
Ooh, you know what? Let's talk a little bit about the methylated B vitamins, because I get that question quite a bit. Of course, a lot of us know, they're essential. These are not things that we can make in our body. They have to come from diet. The B vitamins in particular are water soluble, so they don't really linger in the body. So you do have to consistently bring them in on almost like a daily basis. But I think there's sometimes a little bit of confusion in the general public on what it means to have the methylated B vitamins, because there's actually only 2 B vitamins that are methylated. It's folate and cobalamin, which is vitamin B12. So vitamin B9, folate, and vitamin B12, cobalamin are the ones that are in the methylated forms. But here's another.
See that vitamin B complex. I'm looking under bestsellers on Life Extension, and that B complex is right there at the top.
Absolutely. I might argue it's long known that the B vitamins are needed, but still really important. And sometimes So I get really excited about these like polyphenols and flavonoids, quercetin, fisetin, such as I forget, oh gosh, I haven't taken my multi today or my B vitamin, which is, kind of should be foundational baseline.
Right. All right. Now let's get what we've already talked about. We'll call it the, here's how I'm going to remember things. I'm going to, like eating 1,000 strawberries. Now, what was the other one? I can't remember these names. The other new one that you're excited about.
Oh, ergothioneine.
Yes.
Yes.
Ergothioneine. How can I forget? Yes. What is ergothioneine and how does it help us?
Oh, yeah. So dietarily, the main source is actually mushrooms. Are you a mushroom fan?
Yes.
Or are you the one that picks off the mushrooms off the pizza?
No, I eat mushrooms and I do have tried. I'm actually out now, but I was taking like a like a mushroom complex vitamin that was like, all the mushrooms you're supposed to eat or something. So I am familiar with those.
Mushrooms are so amazing. The more I look into them, they have so many wonderful components like, our beta glucans and certain amino acids. And actually, ergothioneine is a derivative of the amino acid histidine. But why Life Extension and the scientific community was really interested in ergothioneine is because humans can't make it. Even though if histidine is an essential amino acid, we have to consume it from diet. But even if we take in histidine, we cannot turn it into ergothioneine. But what's interesting is our cells have specific ergothioneine transporters. So our cells have transporters to bring in ergothioneine, and it's not even something we can make. So it's almost like we have to get it from diet. It's almost like we were designed to eat mushrooms. Kind of interesting.
We've had a lot of cannabis researchers and doctors that have come on talking about that very thing with having the cannabinoid receptors, in our body, which is another interesting correlation.
Absolutely. It's really fascinating how our body has kind of almost like, whether it's like evolved, adapted to nature. These are things that, and why our cells would even have ergothioneine receptors is because ergothioneine is one of the most powerful antioxidants. It's often compared to like glutathione, because I think a lot of your listeners are probably familiar with like glutathione. It's one of our most powerful internal antioxidants that we make. But remember, we can't make ergothioneine. And there was some research done kind of comparing the antioxidant effects between glutathione and ergothioneine. Sometimes the research showed equivalent antioxidant protection, but in some research, it was showing that it was even more powerful. So a really important antioxidant that we should have in our cells. But here's another kind of interesting piece. It's not just the outside of our cells that have these ergothioneine transporters, but our mitochondria also have ergothioneine transporters to bring that ergothioneine in to protect the mitochondria. Because a lot of your listeners are probably familiar with the fact that the mitochondria, the harder it works producing energy, the more free radicals it can produce and eventually burn itself out. So antioxidant support for the mitochondria is incredibly important to keep our energy production up.
Hey, we all got to have our energy up. I'm chasing 4 boys around. I'm coaching every team and doing everything else. I'm backing off the caffeine, so you got to have that natural energy production, right?
You got to have that healthy mitochondria to keep that energy production up. Absolutely. We could also talk about, like, for example, CoQ10 and PQQ, which are really almost like, I almost want to say baseline nutrients for mitochondrial health. The ergothioneine is fantastic because it's protecting, just kind of overall cell support, and our DNA, because our DNA is, outside of the mitochondria. So having the ergothioneine there to protect from like UV damage, heavy metal kind of damage that can happen to the DNA, even from like divalent types of like metals, like for example, like copper, iron, things that we need in our cells, but can be a little bit reactive and can create some damage. So ergothioneine is great for that. But have you had people talking about PQQ, which is kind of a fun one?
No, I'm ready. I've heard of it, but we have not talked about it on the show. So let's talk.
Oh, it's actually another one of Life Extension's favorites. In fact, in 2012, I think Life Extension was the first company to bring PQQ out to the market.
Wow. Because
we were so excited about the research on it. Now, PQQ stands for pyrroloquinoline quinone, which long name. So I'm glad we have
PQQ. It is.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
And it's funny if you look, like if you're looking at labels, you might see that long word and say, oh gosh, that sounds kind of chemically. Is that found in nature? And it is. It's actually found in foods like bananas and kiwis, but in even smaller quantities than what we were talking about with Fisetin in, like strawberries and apples and things like that. One of the Life Extension formulators did a calculation. It was like you had to eat something like 5,000 bananas to get the dose that we need. That was found in the studies of PQQ. So, which I would not suggest. Please don't eat 5,000 bananas.
No monkeys, please. And you're not going to get. I don't think we can get 5,000 bananas in.
And no, that would not be good for the blood sugar either.
How about banana pudding? I mean, I could eat 5,000 gallons of banana pudding now.
That would be easy. That would be definitely easy to do. But what it does in the body is it actually talks to the DNA of the mitochondria, because the mitochondria have its own set of DNA. And when it's triggered to replicate. So what PQQ will do is it will trigger mitochondrial replication. So we have more mitochondria. The more mitochondria we have in our cells, the more energy production that we can make. Previously, the only known way of stimulating mitochondrial biogenesis or replicating of the mitochondria was intensive aerobic exercise. So really our athletes, like right. If you're doing a lot of running around, yes. you're triggering that.
I work out 5 days a week. So and running with the kids. So yeah, for sure.
Oh, that's wonderful. But for some, of us who have sitting at desks for 8-9 plus hours a day, it's sometimes a little bit tricky to get that consistent exercise in. So it's really great to know that we have PQQ to help out with the energy production. Plus, another aspect is, say, for example, you have certain problems, like, for example, our heart has some of the highest concentration of mitochondria, which kind of makes sense, right? Our heart is constantly beating. And so it needs a constant supply of that ATP energy. So even for just, a moment in time, if the heart doesn't have the ATP it needs, and that's not compatible with life. If we kind of think about it that way, it's a little unnerving. Yeah. So if, for example, if somebody does have heart problems, I would hope the last thing somebody would say is, hey, jump on the treadmill and go as fast as you can to stimulate mitochondrial biogenesis. So it could be really helpful to have certain nutrients on board that can be really helpful for overall heart support. But on that note, if we have more mitochondria, we do need more CoQ10. Because CoQ10 is a component of the electron transport chain in the mitochondria to make that ATP energy. So long story short, if you have more mitochondria, you need more CoQ10.
The CoQ10, the last, 3 to 4 years, it's been showing up a lot more, especially just on the aisles of supplements and things like that. That's definitely been something that's become more mainstream, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. It's just really one of those important ingredients. Here's kind of a scary statistic. As we age, our body produces less and less and less CoQ10. So
replace what you're not making anymore. Yeah,
right? It's one of those things that certain nutrients in the body that are just really important for our health. CoQ10. lipoic acid also has been making kind of a splash. We make lipoic acid, but with age, lipoic acid tends to ramp down. And what I mean by that, I'm sure a lot of your listeners are familiar with alpha lipoic acid, which is actually a 50-50 mix of S lipoic acid and R lipoic. It's actually R lipoic acid that is the bioactive form in the body. So if you're looking at labels and you see 200 milligrams of alpha lipoic acid, you're actually only using 100 milligrams of that. So it might be to your listeners' benefit to look for specifically R lipoic acid.
Okay. Talk to me about how Life Extension tests their products, the scientific background, the studies. I noticed that you guys do a lot of research. There's a lot of different things, but talk to our audience about kind of what goes into product development and those kind of things.
Oh, yeah, because that's a huge, important piece of high quality. And I mean, there's no point in putting something not quality into our body, especially if we're trying to promote like longevity. So it all really actually starts with our formulators, our formulation scientists. What they're primarily doing is they're looking at the latest and greatest in research. So every single formula Life Extension creates is based on that scientific research. So we're using the same dose and the exact same ingredient that gave the best benefits. And we were looking specifically at a specific kind of health concern when we're formulating. But once they have the recipe together, then we search for the highest quality raw material from around the world. Because, like, for example, we want to grab like plant-based material from typically the native areas that those plants are grown. Like, for example, we want to get our ashwagandha from India or, that kind of. So we search around, but the caveat is testing, like you said. All of our raw material is tested by a third party to ensure that quality, that purity, that potency. And then once we have a really good batch, another thing is that we do that DNA fingerprinting testing too of our plant material, just to make sure, because sometimes if you get a big bag of like powdered green material that says this is green tea, we want to make sure it's actually green tea and not something else, and that it's not adulterated with some other plant material. So we do all that type of testing, and then once we have that raw material and we put it into, like, for example, a pill, a capsule, a tablet, a powder, then we test again to make sure that there wasn't any contaminants, that the purity and potency is still there. And we will offer a certificate of analysis, which we call a C of A or COA. And that's the final product testing. So a lot goes into creating a product like that. And then even with like good manufacturing practices, Life Extension is NSF certified. So that's a third party organization that comes in and makes sure that, companies like Life Extension are abiding by the good manufacturing practices. They'll do audits on the manufacturing facilities to make sure that we're up to snuff. So yeah, lots goes into it.
Yeah. And consumerlab.com, 10-time winner, #1 rated multivitamins. Saw that on the site.
Yes. Yeah. Another third-party testing group. So, another third-party testing group that Life Extension utilizes is IFOS. That's a fun one. IFOS is the International Fish Oil Standards. They are the premier tester of fish oil. And the highest rating you can get is 5 stars. Life Extension consistently gets 5 stars from IFOS, and it's not just from one batch. We consistently give them different lots. Every new lot, they get a new batch to test, and you can see that on their website.
Talking with Dr. Vanessa Pavey from Life Extension. I think everything we're talking about with like the efficacy and like all this stuff, because it just seems like there's a lot of bad players out there and you don't know what you're getting. And it's been impressive looking at Life Extension, some of the reviews, a lot of the reviews and referrals and people that I know that take it. Part of the reason we wanted to have you on the show. And, I think that can be the most confusing part for consumers. Not only the variety now of things that you could take, but okay, once you get down to, okay, you've worked with your doctor or you're taking some recommendations, doing these things. All right, now which one do I take? It's confusing.
Oh, it is. In fact, Life Extension offers over 300 products. So it can get overwhelming, which is another reason why we have our wellness specialists that you can give Life Extension a call and talk with one of them. Because, it's impossible. Some people like me, I try to get those 300 in, but it's just really not feasible to get that many nutrients in. So it is helpful to tailor to the specifics that you're looking for.
If there's someone listening, Doctor, if obviously, and we've talked about how this should be undertaken, go to Life Extension or find someone to, do some testing, talk to specialists, figure out that cocktail of what you should take, so to speak. But obviously that's preferred. But if you're giving a recommendation of, and we've talked about a lot of different things today, and so some of these might be level 2s but what's like the 4 or 5 that most people should just be on?
Oh gosh, definitely foundation.
Yeah.
Multivitamin, either your B complex, but ideally you're really a multivitamin to not just get the B vitamins, but also, and making sure you're getting those bioactive Bs, making sure you're getting the methylcobalamin, the methyl tetrahydrofolate. But you also want to make sure you're getting the fat solubles too, like vitamin D, A, E, K. Well, sometimes it's a little tricky to find a multi with K in it, because if you're on medications like warfarin or Coumadin, you might want to talk with your doctor before bringing in vitamin K. But vitamin K for bone health is just really, and not just bone health, but for cardiovascular health too. I would also, a really good multivitamin. I would also say a probiotic, just a general, gut supporting, specific probiotic, CoQ10. I would put in the foundational category, and also fish oil. And we talked a little bit about fish oil testing, but fish oil, getting a quality fish oil in regularly is very important to help balance all the omega-6s that we're consuming. I'm sure a lot of your listeners are hearing more and more about seed oils, which provide a lot of omega-6s. Just to give a little detail on that, typically what we want in terms of intake is for every 4 omega-6s, you want to balance that with 1 omega-3 that you're getting from fish oil. But the typical ratio that we're getting is usually 25-1.
Wow.
Which is
imbalance is what it sounds to me.
It's scary, since the omega-6s, 25, inflammatory omega-6s to 1 anti-inflammatory omega-3.
We're talking artery clogs, right? And that kind of where that's getting down the road potentially.
Well, actually, whole body problems when the inflammation gets out of control. So, bringing in a high quality fish oil, bringing in those really quality omega-3s is important.
Treasure trove of knowledge, Dr. Vanessa Pavey. It's been a pleasure having you. How can we keep up with everything that Life Sciences and yourself are up to?
Oh, actually, Life Extension does have a magazine, a monthly publication. So you can give us a call if you'd like to have the magazine sent. You can also access the archives on the lifeextension.com website as well.
It's a treasure trove of knowledge. There's a lot of stuff. I looked over it before the episode, and while we've been talking, just a ton of insight and trust, and really love what you guys are doing.
Oh, thank you. We're really passionate about what we're doing.
Yeah, it shows. It really does. And your knowledge is appreciated. So thank you so much for coming on the show, Doctor.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Hey guys, you know where to find us, vibescience.com. We'll have links to all the stuff we talked about today, lifeextension.com, and the show notes. Hey, you got to keep up with some of these things. We'll have acronyms for everything. We'll keep it simple. We're dialing it in. We're empowering you to your highest vibe. We'll see you next time on Vibe Science.
The content discussed on this show is provided for reference and educational purposes. The content is not an attempt to practice medicine or provide specific medical advice. Always consult your personal physician for medical advice and proper diagnosis.
Thanks for listening. This is Vibe Science. To learn more or watch full episodes, visit vibesciencepodcast.com. Here's to discovering your highest vibe